Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your pay stubs because Washington just went nuclear. Overnight, 35,000 federal workers gone, fired, furloughed, frozen out of their paychecks. In fact, the IRS, the same agency that's been breathing down America's neck for decades, is now on life support. Half the agency, has been wiped off the payroll in what the White House is now calling a necessary restructuring. But inside of Washington, D.C., panic. Phones ringing off the hook, workers locked out of their emails, families crying because that Friday deposit never hit their bank accounts. And guess what, guys? This is only the beginning because President Donald J. Trump says that this isn't a glitch, it is a correction. In fact, today we're going to dive headfirst into the shockwave that's sweeping across Washington, D.C., the shutdown chaos, the political chess match, and of course, the ordinary Americans caught in the crossfires. President Trump's government overhaul sends shockwaves through every corner of the Capitol. Stick around, guys, because before this video is over, you're going to understand why 35,000 missing paychecks might be the most powerful message ever sent to the federal bureaucracy and what this means for the rest of us. Oh, it's going to blow your socks off. Now, the IRS, they thought it was untouchable, but today we find out what actually happens when the collector becomes the casualty. Hit the like button, subscribe, guys. Okay. So overnight, Washington didn't shuffle the deck. It flipped the table, okay? Internal lockouts hit IRS systems. Badges failed, emails bounced, and HR portals quietly flagged thousands as inactive. By sunrise, staff understood the math. More than 35,000 IRS employees, roughly half of the agency, they were removed from payroll under President Donald J. Trump amid the unresolved shutdown. Now, this wasn't whisper chain drama. It was division-wide. I'm talking audits, collections, taxpayer services, IT, and even enforcement. Supervisors reported no guidance, help desk queues exploded, and union hotlines lit up with one question: do we still have jobs? Now, families woke up to empty pay calendars and frozen benefits while managers repeated the new euphemism, workforce alignment. Now on Capitol Hill, allies framed it as fiscal discipline. Critics call it bureaucratic decapitation. Either way, guys, the scale and the speed shattered expectations that were set by February's smaller cuts. Now I want you to understand the signal being sent here. The federal sacred cow just got led to slaughter, and the shockwave will not stop at the walls of the IRS. Now, anxiety turned concrete when deposits failed to hit. Thousands checked their banks on the 15th and they saw zero. No activity, no direct deposit. Agency counsel warned a hard line right now separates furlough from termination. Only furloughs are clearly eligible for back pay. Now that hair split right there really leaves families in limbo. Meanwhile, health coverage pauses, TSP contributions halt, and dependent care reimbursements are stalling while mortgages and car notes arrive on schedule. A 15-year veteran told me, I went from $3,000 to $4,000 a paycheck to nothing overnight. Others lost email access before any separation letter, discovering status only when their badges failed when they showed up in the building and the doors didn't open for them. Supervisors are labeling it a temporary interruption. Unions call it theft by policy. Constituent lines on Capitol Hill are jammed, and staff say no guarantees exist until appropriations move. The shutdown calendar weaponizes the 1st and the 15th, turning each missed direct deposit into fees, penalty, interest, and credit hits. This is no accounting glitch, guys. This is pressure designed to see who blinks first. Now, if I were to ask you to rate your Medicare confidence on a scale of 1 to 10, where would that land? Now, if it's not a 10, that is a problem, guys. Now, this is why I partner with Chapter, guys. Their advisors raise that number by reviewing your Medicare plan until you feel secure. Now, one of our viewers, she said, Chapter took me from a 4 to a 10 on my Medicare confidence. So let me ask you, do you want to stay uncertain, or do you want to do what most people already are and choosing certainty? Now, most people are dialing that phone number right there on the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. And of course, it's totally free for the Ron Yates community. Now, behind the chaos sits a strategy. This strategy is one that's just unmistakably Trumpian, okay? The president isn't hiding from this. He's branding it as a historic correction of waste. Insiders are saying Trump personally signed off on the workforce cuts after repeated warnings from budget aides that the IRS was bloated beyond efficiency. Now, if you think that the IRS is bloated too, drop a bloat down below. Let me know where you stand on this, guys. But this isn't just about the numbers. This is a high-stakes negotiation tactic. In fact, the shutdown showdown has frozen Congress Congress. And President Trump's message is clear. If Washington won't trim voluntarily, well, he's going to go ahead and do it himself. Go ahead and bring on the chainsaw, shall we? So Trump's allies call it bold leadership. His opponents call it extortion of executive order. Each and every single day, without funding, builds pressure on federal unions. Agency heads and lawmakers are terrified of losing middle-class votes. Now, to Trump's base, though, this is poetic justice. In fact, the same IRS that weaponized audits against small businesses and conservatives, they're now feeling the squeeze. So whether you cheer or you panic, one truth is obvious. This is power politics executed with surgical precision. So inside of the federal circles, they're calling it the purge. For decades, the IRS symbolized untouchable authority, agents armed with code books, audits, and near unlimited reach. Now, the IRS empire is being dismantled in real time. The administration insists that this isn't retaliation, this is reform. And so half the workforce gone means that the bureaucracy is getting stripped away. Less enforcement, fewer audits, more outsourcing, and a dramatic reallocation of funds toward national security and border operations. Analysts are saying that this could permanently reshape how taxes are processed, how they're collected, and how they're challenged. It's an institutional amputation that's disguised as efficiency. Historical parallels trace all the way back to Ronald Reagan's 1981 federal tax cuts and the post-Cold War military downsizing, but never on this scale, and never this sudden, never this fast. So to supporters, it's draining the swamp. To critics, it's burning the house. Either way, I'm not sure what side you're on. America just learned that even the IRS, once the most feared agency in the country, can be humbled overnight. Now, this IRS collapse isn't isolated. In fact, this is the loudest echo in a pattern that's been building since Trump returned back to office. Drop a 47 down below if you support President Trump's actions, and drop an IRS collapse if you're happy with the decision that Trump has made with the IRS and the reforms. Now, across Washington, D.C., turnover has exploded. I'm talking Treasury, Homeland Security, even defense are quietly hemorrhaging personnel. Retirement filings surged 42% in September alone. Agencies cite voluntary separations, but insiders describe something closer to managed exits. People nudged out, pushed out, buyouts dangled, clearances delayed until frustration forces resignation. Well, the administration's public line, streamlining a bloated government. The private reality? Well, thousands of federal families wrestling with uncertainty while recruiters from the private sector circle. The cost of this churn right here goes way deeper than the statistics. Decades of institutional knowledge is disappearing overnight. Now, one analyst put it bluntly, we are watching the federal machine forget how to run itself. Wow, that's crazy, right? So whether this is deliberate decentralization or bureaucratic collapse, it really kind of depends on your own personal politics. But I will say this, one thing is for sure, the steady hum of the federal workforce just turned into a rattle. And nobody knows what really happens when the engine seizes. So Capitol Hill is right now split right down the middle. Freedom Caucus members are cheering the layoff, saying President Trump finally proved that government doesn't need to be sacred. But even some Republicans are flinching. Senator Tim Scott, he called it a dangerous overcorrection. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he insists that the president has every right to trim inefficiencies. Yet behind closed doors, staff warn that the optics could be dangerous. Democrats, of course, are already in campaign mode, holding pressers, flanked by laid-off workers, demanding emergency relief, and accusing Trump himself of using lives as leverage. No, the political temperature is redlining. One GOP aide actually told Newsmax this morning, we wanted fiscal discipline, not federal chaos. Meanwhile, markets are jittery, credit agencies are watching, and federal unions are drafting lawsuits. Now, let me tell you guys, the message to Congress is very simple. Fix the shutdown or own the fallout. And right now, nobody on Capitol Hill seems eager to touch this grenade before it blows. And so now the lawmakers, the lawyers, they're all circling around. And every word in federal code suddenly matters. The 2019 law passed after the last major shutdown. It was supposed to guarantee back pay for furloughed workers. But here's the twist, guys. These weren't furloughs. They were terminations. That single word distinction could decide whether tens of thousands ever see their paychecks. Now, Office of Personnel Management attorneys are divided. Some say no authority for retroactive compensation once employment status is revoked. Now, others are arguing that Congress must clarify the statute or risk class action suits. A bipartisan draft bill is being floated in order to restore back pay, but it's stuck behind this partisan gridlock right now. Meanwhile, you've got labor lawyers. They're warning that if Washington's precedent becomes fire now, debate later, every federal agency becomes a hostage during future shutdowns. You see how this could morph into something much bigger, right, guys? Treasury insiders are quietly admitting that their entire fight may head to the Supreme Court before year's end. Until then, thousands of IRS employees are literally living off their credit cards, burning through their savings accounts, liquidating their 401ks just to survive, waiting for a verdict that might take months, maybe even years. So even darker stories are starting to emerge inside of the agencies themselves. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. Employees describe logging in one morning only to find that their system access was revoked, benefits frozen, and no official notice explaining why. Many have only learned that they were let go when their government email locked out and HR phone lines went dead. Some call them ghost firings. A former IRS IT specialist in Austin, Texas posted, "I have never even gotten a letter. I just stopped existing in the system." Federal law technically requires a notice, but mass digital terminations during shutdowns kind of blur the line, especially for remote workers. Supervisors insist it's automation glitches. Employees call it psychological warfare. Either way, whether you're an employee who reports to the office or you're a remote worker employee, morale across federal offices has cratered. Veterans with 20 plus years of service, they're suddenly getting locked out of their pensions. These are the same pensions that they thought were guaranteed. Now, I'm gonna be honest, it's one thing to be laid off, but it's completely different to be completely erased. This invisible wave of silent firings has become the chilling undercurrent beneath the entire federal collapse. So behind every headline about efficiency are human beings watching their lives unravel in real time. I'm talking about a single mother in Maryland who told reporters that she's now 3 weeks behind on rent and rationing groceries for her 2 kids. A 20-year veteran of the IRS said that he woke up to find his health insurance canceled the same day that his father went into surgery. One worker shared that she's now driving for Uber at night just to keep her car from being repossessed. Guys, these stories are multiplying by the hour, flooding social media with these screenshots of empty paycheck stubs and denial letters. I gotta ask you guys, drop a sympathy down below if you have sympathy for these IRS workers, or just drop an I don't care if you don't care about the IRS workers' problems. Now, some haven't even told their families yet, too embarrassed to admit that a federal badge no longer means security. Now, it's one thing to argue about bureaucracy and budgets, but when you strip away the politics, what you're left with is despair. The federal family that once promised stability now feels like a broken contract, and the emotional fallout, this is going to outlast any shutdown. Out of all this chaos becomes a harsh, brutal truth. Too many Americans, federal workers included, they were living paycheck to paycheck. Even at the heart of the government, financial advisors are pleading with laid off employees in order to create 6-month emergency funds. But this is a lesson that's turned too late for thousands. Credit unions like the USAA and Navy Federal, they have rolled out short-term loans for furloughed and terminated workers, but they come with very fine print. Approval depends on credit scores. Many don't have the required credit scores to get approved now. Some agencies are offering hardship withdrawals from retirement accounts, effectively forcing workers to raid their future survival in the present time. In other words, they're going to have to tap into their retirement savings, 401ks, maybe even their IRAs or pensions just to survive in the short term here. Online communities, personal finance coaches are teaching side hustles, rental arbitrage, even YouTube content creation, anything that generate cash flow before the debt collectors start calling in. So the message that's spreading through TikTok, through Telegram and Reddit, it's simple. Diversify your income, fix your credit, never trust a single paycheck again, because the illusion of a federal job security just shattered in real time. Now, this crisis isn't contained within cubicles. It's actually creeping into the country's bloodstream. So when federal pay stops, essential services start to begin to fracture. TSA officers at major airports are quietly calling in sick, leaving security lines stretching way past the terminals. Air traffic controllers are warning that they cannot keep showing showing up indefinitely without pay. Even the military, long shielded from government shutdown impacts, is facing gaps in contractor payments and supply delays. October 15th came and went without deposits, and now that countdown to November 1st, it's on. Each missed payday compounds the pressure, not just on Washington, D.C., but on the nation's logistics, safety, and infrastructure. One misstep at an airport tower or a border checkpoint could turn economic disruption into national emergency. Analysts are warning that if this continues for another month, we'll see cascading shortages, delayed refunds, stalled shipments, possibly impacting our supply chains, and gridlock in the literal sense. So when America's bureaucrats stop working, the country's gears start grinding to a halt, and right now they're seizing fast. So here's the big takeaway. It's not just for the IRS workers, guys. This moment right here, this is a flashing warning red light for every American who thinks that, oh, well, this could never happen to me. We just watched the largest government layoff in modern history unfold overnight. Paychecks vanished, pensions froze, and Washington just shrugged. Whether you're a private or a public sector worker, the same truth applies. No one is coming to save you. Build the cushion, stack the cash, secure your options, because dependence on any single employer, especially the federal government, is a risk that you just can't afford. And politically, hold both parties accountable. Demand clarity on where your tax dollars go and how they're managed. The IRS collapse isn't the end. This is a preview. If one of the world's biggest bureaucracies can crumble this quickly like the IRS, just imagine what happens when the next domino falls. Like, subscribe, and share this video, because the more people understand what's coming, the better chance we have to prepare before the next wave hits. We'll see you next time.